February 2018, Warner Brothers backlot, Stage 16. Clint Eastwood sits behind the monitor at 4:47 a.m. He is 87 years old. The crew isn't due for another hour, but he is already here watching yesterday's footage. Alone, in the dark. And for the first time in 60 years, he feels something he has spent his entire life outrunning. He feels time, not the passage of it. He has always known time moves, but the weight of it, the certainty that it is winning, that no matter how fast he works, how many films he makes, how quietly he pushes forward, there will come a day when his hands stop moving and the story still inside him will die with him. And that terrifies him more than any gunfight, any critical failure, any public humiliation ever could. This is not a story about old age. This is a story about what happens when a man who has spent his entire life in motion realizes he is running out of road. And what he does in that realization does not just define him, it redefines what it means to refuse surrender. To understand what happens on Stage 16 that morning, you need to understand who Clint Eastwood was before he became the man with no name. Before the Westerns, before Dirty Harry, before the Oscars. You need to understand the boy in Oakland, California, 1940. 10 years old, skinny, quiet, invisible. His father worked in steel mills when he could find work. His mother took in laundry. They moved 12 times in 10 years, chasing jobs, chasing survival. And Clint learned early that the world does not care about you, that if you want something, you take it, that if you make noise, people will find reasons to push you down. So he stopped making noise. He watched, he listened, he became very, very still. But inside, something else was happening. Inside, a clock started ticking. Not a death clock, a life clock, a countdown to irrelevance. Because Clint understood something most people do not. He understood that time is not just about dying. It is about disappearing, about becoming invisible while you are still alive, about the world moving forward and leaving you behind. And that terrified him. Fast forward to 1971. Clint is 41 years old. He has been acting for 15 years, mostly in westerns, mostly as the stoic gunslinger. But he knows something the studios do not. He knows the western is dying. He knows audiences are changing. He knows if he does not evolve, he will be replaced. So he starts directing. His first film, Play Misty for Me, is a thriller about obsession. It is not a western. It is proof that he can do something else, that he is not just a cowboy, that he can change before the world changes him. The film is a modest success. Critics are surprised. They expected John Wayne in a different hat. Instead, they got something darker, more complex. And Clint does not celebrate. He just moves to the next project, and the next, and the next, because stopping is death. Stopping is irrelevance. Stopping is the thing he fears most. By 1992, Clint is 62. He has been directing for 20 years. He has made hits and failures, but Hollywood is changing again. The new generation is here. Spielberg, Scorsese, Cameron. Directors who grew up with film school and theory and big budgets. Directors who make blockbusters, who fill theaters with spectacle. And Clint feels it. The shift, the sense that his style, his quiet restraint, is becoming old-fashioned, that the world is moving faster than he can keep up. And then he makes Unforgiven, a western about aging, about obsolescence, about men who have outlived their usefulness. It is not a coincidence. It is a confession. It is Clint Eastwood staring into the mirror and asking the question he has been avoiding his entire life. What happens when you are no longer needed? The film wins 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. Clint stands on stage at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion holding his Oscar. He is 62 years old, the oldest person to win Best Director in over a decade, and he gives the shortest acceptance speech in Oscar history. Thank you. This is for everyone who worked on this film. 20 words. Because he does not have time for speeches. He has more films to make. But here is what nobody sees. Here is what the cameras do not catch. After the ceremony, Clint goes home. He sits in his living room holding the Oscar, and he does not feel triumph. He feels relief. Relief that he bought himself more time, that the world will not forget him yet, that he has delayed the inevitable just a little longer. The next morning, he starts working on his next project. Now we are back on stage 16, February 2018. Clint is watching footage from The Mule, a film about an 80-year-old man who becomes a drug courier because he has run out of options, because the world has moved on without him, because he is invisible. The parallels are not subtle. Clint is playing a version of himself, a man racing against time, a man terrified of being forgotten. At 5:30 a.m., the crew starts arriving. Grips, camera operators, sound technicians. They are all younger than Clint by 40, 50 years. Some of them were not born when he made Unforgiven, and Clint watches them set up, efficient, professional, not looking at him. Not because they are rude, but because to them, he is history. A legend, yes, but history nonetheless. The assistant director, a woman named Rachel, approaches. She is 34 years old. She has worked on 3 films with Clint. She respects him deeply, but she also worries about him. "Mr. Eastwood, we are set for the first shot, but if you need more time, we can push." Clint looks at her. "Why would I need more time? You were here early. You have been here every day this week before call time. She pauses. "I want to make sure you are taking care of yourself." The words hang in the air. Taking care of yourself. Code for you are old. Code for you should slow down. Code for maybe this is too much for you. Clint's jaw tightens, just slightly, barely visible. But Rachel sees it. She has learned to read him. "I am fine, Rachel. Let's shoot." She nods and walks away, but she knows she said something wrong. She just does not know what. They film the first scene. Clint is in front of the camera and behind the monitor, acting and directing simultaneously. It is exhausting, the kind of exhausting that would break most people half his age. But Clint does not show it. He never shows it. He calls action. He delivers his lines. He calls cut. He checks the playback. He makes adjustments. And he does it all with the same quiet efficiency he has had for 60 years. But something is different today. The crew can feel it. Clint is moving slower. His breath is shorter. His focus is just slightly off. Not enough to ruin a take, but enough to notice. And during a break, Rachel pulls aside the cinematographer, a veteran named Tom. "Should we say something?" Tom shakes his head. "To Clint? Are you kidding? He will fire us both." "But he is 87 years old, Rachel. This schedule is brutal. He is doing 14-hour days. What if something happens? Then something happens. But we do not tell Clint Eastwood to slow down. Nobody tells Clint Eastwood to slow down." 3 days later, they are filming a driving scene. Clint is behind the wheel of a pickup truck. The scene requires him to drive for 6 miles on a highway while delivering a monologue. It is technically complex. The camera is rigged inside the truck. The crew is following in a second vehicle. And Clint has to hit his marks, deliver his lines, and navigate traffic all at the same time. They do the first take. Clint nails it. Perfect performance, perfect timing. But when he pulls over, he does not get out of the truck immediately. He just sits there, hands on the wheel, breathing. Rachel approaches. "Mr. Eastwood, are you okay?" He does not answer. He is staring straight ahead. And for a moment, just a moment, Rachel sees something she has never seen before. She sees fear, not of the scene, not of the performance, fear of something bigger, something he cannot control. "Clint?" He turns to her. His face is calm again, controlled. The moment has passed. "I am fine. Let's go again." But Rachel does not move. "Mr. Eastwood, you do not have to do this. We can use a driving double for the wide shots. You can focus on the close-ups." Clint looks at her, and when he speaks, his voice is low. "Dangerous. I have been doing my own stunts since before you were born. I am not using a double now, but this is not about pride. This is about safety, your safety. And I am telling you, I am fine." The conversation is over. They film the scene 3 more times, and every time Clint is perfect. But the crew is on edge. They are watching him, waiting for him to break. And Clint knows it. He can feel their eyes on him, their concern, their pity. And it makes him furious, not at them, at time, at his body, at the betrayal of aging. That night, after wrap, Clint stays on set. Everyone else leaves. The lights go down, and he sits in the director's chair, alone, in the dark. And he thinks about all the films he has not made yet, all the stories still inside him. And he wonders if he will have time to tell them, if his body will hold out, if the world will still care. He thinks about Gene Hackman, who retired at 74, about Sean Connery, who stopped at 73, about actors and directors who decided they had done enough, who walked away while they still could. And he understands why they did it. He understands the exhaustion, the sense that you have said everything you need to say. But Clint cannot do it. He cannot walk away, not because he is stubborn, not because he needs the acclaim, but because stopping is surrender. And surrender is the one thing he has never learned to do. 2 weeks later, they wrap The Mule. The final cut is exactly what Clint wanted. A quiet, melancholic film about a man trying to matter one last time, about a man terrified of being forgotten. The studio loves it. The test audiences respond well. It is released in December 2018. It makes over $170 million worldwide. Critics call it a modest success. Some say Clint is slowing down. Others say he is still sharp. But the real conversation is happening in whispers. How much longer can he keep doing this? And Clint hears the whispers. He always hears the whispers. But he does not respond. He just starts working on his next film. Richard Jewell? Then Cry Macho. Then whatever comes next. Because this is who he is. A man in motion. A man refusing to stop. A man terrified of the only thing he cannot outrun. Time. In 2021, Clint is 91 years old. He is on set for Cry Macho. It is a film about an old cowboy who goes to Mexico to retrieve a boy. It is about redemption, about second chances, about proving you still have something to offer. And once again, the parallels are impossible to ignore. Clint is not just directing this film, he is living it. During production, a young actor asks him why he keeps working, why he does not retire, why he does not rest. And Clint thinks for a long moment. Then he says, "Because the day I stop is the day I disappear. And I am not ready to disappear yet." The actor does not fully understand. How could he? He is 25 years old. He has decades ahead of him. He cannot comprehend what it feels like to know you are running out of road, to feel time pressing down on you, to be terrified that the world will move on without you. But Clint understands. He has understood it his entire life, and that understanding has driven him, has pushed him to work harder, faster, longer than anyone else, to make more films, take more risks, refuse more comfort. Because comfort is death. Comfort is irrelevance. Comfort is the thing he fears most. Here is the truth about Clint Eastwood, the thing most people do not see. He is not fearless. He has never been fearless. He is terrified, terrified of time, terrified of obsolescence, terrified of being forgotten. And that terror has shaped everything he has done, every film, every risk, every quiet refusal to stop working. Most people think fear is weakness, but for Clint, fear is fuel. It is the engine that has kept him moving for 60 years. It is the reason he shows up at 4:47 a.m. when the call time is 6 a.m. It is the reason he directs and acts and produces and never ever stops. Because stopping is surrender, and surrender means time wins. And Clint Eastwood has spent his entire life refusing to let time win. On stage 16 in February 2018, when Rachel asked if he needed more time, she thought she was being kind. She thought she was showing concern. But what Clint heard was different. What he heard was, "You are old. You are slowing down. You are not what you used to be." And that is the one thing he cannot accept. Not because of pride, but because accepting it means time has won. And time cannot win. Not yet. So he keeps working. He keeps making films. He keeps showing up before call time and staying after rap. He keeps pushing himself harder than anyone his age should. And yes, it is exhausting. Yes, it is painful. Yes, there are moments when his body betrays him, when his breath is short, when his hands shake, when he sits in a truck after a take and wonders if he can do it again. But he does do it again and again and again. Because this is who Clint Eastwood is. Not the cowboy, not the gunslinger, not the legend. He is a man terrified of time, a man who has spent his entire life running from obsolescence, a man who understands that the only way to fight time is to refuse to surrender to it. And here is what makes it beautiful. Here is what makes it tragic. Clint knows he cannot win. He knows time is undefeated. He knows that one day his body will stop, his mind will slow, and the world will move on without him. He knows this. He has always known this. But he refuses to accept it. He refuses to go quietly. He refuses to fade. So he keeps making films, keeps telling stories, keeps working until the very last moment. Not because he thinks he can beat time, but because surrendering to it would mean everything he has built, everything he has fought for, was for nothing. And it was not for nothing. It could not be for nothing. That is the one thing Clint Eastwood is afraid of. Not death, not failure, not even being forgotten. He is afraid of stopping, afraid of the moment when he no longer has a film to make, a story to tell. A reason to wake up at 4:47 a.m. and sit in the dark and keep moving. Because movement is life, and stopping is the end. And Clint Eastwood is not ready for the end. Not yet, maybe not ever, so he keeps working, keeps pushing, keeps refusing, quietly, stubbornly, with the same silent determination that has defined him for 60 years. Not because he is fearless, but because he is terrified, and that terror has kept him alive. On stage 16, after Rachel walks away, Clint sits in his director's chair. He looks at the monitor, at the footage they just shot, at himself on screen. 87 years old, still moving, still working, still refusing to stop. And he does not smile. He does not celebrate. He just nods. Once, to himself, to time, to the thing he has been running from his entire life. And then he stands up, adjusts his hat, walks back to set, and calls action. Because that is what he does. That is who he is. A man terrified of time, a man who has spent his life outrunning it, a man who knows he will lose but refuses to surrender. That is Clint Eastwood. Silent, stubborn, terrified, still moving, always moving. Because the moment he stops, time wins. And Clint Eastwood will never let time win. Not without a fight. If this story meant something to you, there will be more. Quietly. No announcements. Just stories. The way Clint would want it.